Once more into the fray, my good friend, once more into the fray. It appears I am a bit of a masochist because I love punishing myself with vitriol from all sides. While I don't fully understand the logic behind the sentiment, people really do get very, very attached to their specific law setup, and they are not too happy when a rube on the internet decides to rank other laws above their favorite. Mayhaps I should be heartened by the fact that there is no actual consensus on what is considered the best law, because it seems that no matter which way you go, you will face opposition. People just cannot seem to agree, and frankly, that just indicates to me that Paradox is doing a relatively good job of giving us agency and multiple different ways to play, even if they can't balance it properly. That means that I have to remind people, again, this is an entirely opinion-based video. There are no multitudes of spreadsheets showing my work. I am merely a man who recognizes patterns and has a penchant for lucking his way onto the right path. Anyhow, this intro has gone on long enough, so I'll just quickly ask you to like and subscribe. I'll also take a moment to thank my YouTube Premium and Patreon members. I know I've been a bit bad at releasing premium videos this month, but I'll make it up to you with more theory crafting videos soon. I promise. Anyhow, let's get into the video. Here is one that might come off as a bit of a controversial statement to make, especially when I am the type of person who has a habit of over-conquering in areas that have 20-year incorporation timers with enough radicals to topple a universe, let alone a country. However, I have recently become the type of person who sees policing as a bit of a liability rather than a benefit in Victoria 3. Ever since the nerf, I can't help but feel they've gone too far to the point where there isn't any value to having policing at all, especially since it costs the same amount of bureaucracy as the other, more useful institutions like healthcare or education. Please also note that there are a lot of bugs regarding policing right now, particularly when it comes to the recent updates to how states are incorporated. Oftentimes, you will discover that despite having level 5 policing, you will still barely receive more than 0.4% turmoil reduction in states that are well past the halfway point of incorporation. Now, couple that with the penalty of giving landowners power or the obscenely high mortality per turmoil, and I can see why people will eschew taking policing entirely. In fact, I outright agree with them. Policing in its current state is pretty bad. At this point in time, with the way that the game is currently set up, I can't help but state that no police is probably the best policing law in the game. This will go double if you happen to be playing tall, since you likely won't be running into any turmoil issues anyway. To me, there are better uses for bureaucracy out there, and Paradox clearly needs to address the pitiful state that policing is in. If they want to keep it as weak as it is right now, the very least they could do is make it so that policing is unaffected by incorporation timers so that warmongers can at least make use of the state penalties from turmoil reduction. Beyond that, I really can't see any reason to suggest people to take any law beyond this one for policing. Why spend the bureaucracy on a law that doesn't seem to work all the time? Did you know that once upon a time, local police force was actually a really good law? Back in the day, it was minus 20% state penalties per level, and up to level 3, you could get a whopping minus 60% state penalties for an absolute bargain. Of course, technically, it's still like that now. You can manage to get up to minus 45% state penalties for the same bargain price as before, but the impact that is felt is almost non-existent with the way that incorporation works at the moment. Recently conquered states with 20+ year timers will take forever for policing to actually help, and that is if the turmoil reduction actually works in the first place. As stated before in the previous section of No Policing, there is still a long-lasting bug out there that prevents policing's turmoil reduction from working at all. You could very easily get hitched at 0.4% reduction on a state that is 6 months away from incorporation, and that is annoying. Now, when you couple the fact that you're taking an actually large penalty of up to 15% landowner political strength, which can very easily hamper your ability to modernize your country quickly, this law's efficacy is tossed out the window, and it quickly ends up becoming one of the greatest liability laws that you can pick in Victoria 3. Once more, for warmongers, this can become a very good, relatively cheap law for keeping recently conquered states under control, particularly in areas that have extremely low acceptance. Of course, you're only ever going to want to take this law under such extreme circumstances, and frankly, I honestly believe you should have planned out your game a little bit better than rely on this crutch in the first place. Do you know why I take dedicated police force every game? It's not because it's an amazing law that changes everything. There is no meta revolving around it that makes it the bee's knees, propelling it into the heavens as a God-given law to better the lives of us mere mortals. No. I picked this law because it used to be amazing. I picked this law purely out of habit. The rose-tinted goggles do nothing, and frankly, this law pretty much does nothing too. This law used to have a minus 15% state penalty from turmoil reduction, and now it's minus 10%. If you thought the local police force nerf was a bad one, losing a whopping minus 15% state penalties overall, both dedicated police and militarized police force lost minus 25% state penalties overall, which is a bonkers nerf that has effectively destroyed the sole purpose of dedicated police and militarized police force. Dedicated police force is no longer a catch-all band-aid that was meant to fix issues caused by conquering a little too fast or allowing radicals to build up a little too quickly. Now it's clearly meant to be paired up with violent suppression, deliberately designed to be a wombo combo of reduction up to minus 100%. There is just one problem. Incorporation timers are painfully long in this game, and the slow roll of the efficacy of your police force law takes forever to take any effect at all. Again, that's if it takes any effect at all. Violent suppression, meanwhile, works instantaneously and can be turned off the moment it's no longer needed. The real benefit to this law now is the radicals from political movements reduction. Having minus 25% really isn't that bad at all, but the cost of bureaucracy is exorbitant for such a benefit. I know, it was meant to be the garnish to the state penalty reduction, but with the way that the game works right now, it's the main course and it is not very filling at all. I sincerely hope Paradox comes back to rework dedicated police force and militarized police force in particular. The nerf, coupled with the incorporation changes, have really rendered this law pretty moot, and once more shifted the meta towards simply not picking any policing at all. That means Paradox really messed up the balance here. I am going to be perfectly honest here. I only ever pick this law when I'm role-playing predominantly because of how painfully late in the game that it comes. If I am aiming to get a policing law, chances are I've already picked up dedicated police force in the first 20 years of the game starting. So why, dear Lord, why would I ever pick this law? First off, the state penalty reduction is the exact same as dedicated police force, so that is a moot factor when I'm considering changing off of dedicated police for militarized. The radical reduction for political movements is also the same, and once more, we find this law becoming redundant. So what is the difference? Well, you can give your armed forces a really big boost of up to plus 50% political strength with this law, which, believe it or not, is actually a really nice bonus in the late game when the armed forces often end up marginalized and you're no longer able to get those sweet offensive and defensive loyalty bonuses. You will also get a minus 5% radicalism for violent hostility, cultural erasure, and open prejudice status for barely accepted to unaccepted populations. In the current state of the game, where you're likely to have hand populations in open prejudice, this law could see some value from this particular little bonus. There is just one problem. You're getting hit with a horrifyingly painful mortality per turmoil penalty that is a lot more shocking than you'd realize. Even a baseline 25 turmoil is enough to give your state a plus 50% mortality rating, which completely goes against the current meta in Victoria 3, which is to maximize population. Instead, what you're effectively doing is just murdering off your people. For what? A tiny radical reduction and a slightly stronger armed forces? You're effectively forcing violent suppression on every state, except unlike violent suppression, you cannot turn it off at will to stop the killing. No, I don't like this law at all. I can see a use for it in very specific conditions, but would I ever take this law myself? No, I will never take this law. This law is dog water, and for how late in the game it is that you get it, it really should be far, far better, but it isn't. Paradox simply needs to remove the mortality penalty entirely, or militarized police force will forever be ignored. Either that, or they need to start pumping those bonus numbers up high enough to make the mortality penalty worth our while. I'd like to thank everybody for watching this far into the video. This should definitely anger a lot of people who like policing in general, and it will probably spark up a little debate about the efficacy bug being common enough to even warrant being included in this video at all. Still, I wanted people to understand my reasoning from every angle, even if the bug is rare. Now, to those of you who are new, I typically do tier list rants and playthroughs, so if you're interested in that sort of thing, please click here to watch my most recent rant on monopolies. Ironically, policing's inefficiency ties to the problems that I have in that video too. Anyhow, good night, and I hope you still enjoy playing Victoria 3 in spite of my goofiness. Make sure to give your loved ones an extra hug tonight, and always remember, Hail Hydra Cat.